Hi, welcome to Take Beyond Gender podcast. I'm your host, Meena Satishkumar. Today, I have Chetna Chaudhari joining me from Fidelity Life. Nice to have you here, Chetna. Would you like to tell us more about yourself?
Mm. Thank you. Thanks, Mina. Thanks for inviting me to the podcast. I'm really looking forward to sharing my journey. So, hello everyone. I'm Chetna, and I am a delivery manager for data and analytics here at Fidelity Life. Um, I I was born in India, and I moved across multiple cities, various jobs from software engineering to infra to data engineering, and now more into leadership space.
Wow, nice. A breadth of service across two different countries. I have never really worked anywhere else other than New Zealand. So I often wonder, like, oh my gosh, how it would be to work in a different country, in a different city. Tell us more. How you began your career in technology? How did you know what created a spark in technology for you in the first instance?
Yeah, it's quite it takes me back to my childhood when I saw others earning more because they were in more um professional jobs like teaching sector or and then when I was a teenager I saw my cousin brothers and all they going into technology. When it comes to my childhood, I had a bit different childhood compared to others. I grew up watching my extended family cousins with all the amenities. At that time, amenities were like having a new clothes or new stationery or all those store bought chocolates and all that stuff. For me, that wasn't the thing. So I belong to a farmer's family. So I was watching my family going to farm every day, and after schooling, I was with my in my neighborhood we had an elderly couple who was teachers that time, so I was with them after my school time, and they used to share these lot of storybooks with me where I started learning like how things could be outside of my small village, which was like close to 600 people. So it's like where everyone knew each other, not only them, their past 4 or 5 generations. So I was learning from the storybooks, but the biggest decision I would say I made was to go for a school, which was Johanoda Vidyalayas back at the time when I was just 9 years old. So it was a school where you have to leave your family and just stay in that school for close to 6 to 7 years for your all the high schooling, and it's where you get to actually spend your entire day, and your parents can only meet you on second Sundays of a month between 10 to 5.
Wow.
And the routines were quite strict. It was from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. with series of back-to-back activities starting from morning yoga to um, serving breakfast or lunch in your mess, and doing some assembly activities to doing your own chores at hostel like cleaning up the lobbies or um, all kind of stuff like and uh, because it was in a remote village side, even access to water wasn't there. It was like we were carrying the buckets of water 2 to 3 floors up in the hostel. So it was quite interesting, which gave me a confidence to go through all the complex situations or all the challenging situations in my life. And the biggest I would say the biggest challenge that time was being young mind, like 10, 12 years, where you are more prone to toys or more prone to dreams. I was more focusing on like how I can make my future more better than what I have today, how I can convert the situation for my family and for myself. So I would say like I was way mature than my age at that time. And but I always had this fear in my mind, like, am I making the right decisions right now? Because I was too young and I had no much guidance available in my village, because everyone was like pretty much equivalent situation, like the highest educated job was a teacher in that village. So uh,
Mm.
even knowing whether there's jobs like scientist or those, we didn't had access to that at all. Actually, a lot of my college friends or hostel mates or even during my schooling time friends, they we went through quite similar situations because all were coming from similar backgrounds of village. But I would say the way you take challenges or the way you face challenges have shaped that only a X percentage of that overall population into a successful careers now, because a lot of people just give up at that young age and they end up making wrong decisions because they can't go through that discipline or that pressure to do certain things. Because we had very strict routine. I would say it was a government school, but it was very strict. So if you don't perform, you just
Mm.
kicked out of the school and you miss this chance of free education, free clothing, free um, toiletries, because we used to get all soap, toothpaste, everything from school. We used to get clothes. All our meals were provided there. And on top of that, we were getting CBSE schooling. That's basically the highest that time at free cost.
Mm.
But the only cost we were paying was to be disciplined, to follow the instructions, to um, do our own work, own chores, which if you are at home, your mom or grandma or they will do for you. So we were learning to cook. We were learning to wash our own clothes. We were learning to clean the gardens, maintain, grow our own food in our small veggie gardens in the school. On top of that, we were also learning all extracurricular activities as well. We were forced to participate in each and every activity, whether it's writing, debating, cultural dance, cultural singing, poetry, I would say. And yeah, I pretty much have tried each sport activity, whether it was cricket, soccer, basketball, handball, or all of those, because we were forced to participate into those. And when you are forced, it's not that each activity will lead to a success. It's 90% will lead to a failure, but that failure was teaching that resilience, which I got today. That was exploring all the possible opportunities and then sticking with the one where your interest and your strengths match. So I would say, like, yeah, it was a roller coaster at a very young age, but it set the tone for my future. It gave me those key skills to lead the teams now, or even before leading a team, I would say it gave me the skills to lead myself in a better way so I can lead others.
Wow.
I, I had a keen interest in information from my childhood because I used to ask a lot of questions to people like who is whose relative and keep drawing all that hierarchy on the page. Nowadays we call it graphs. But the after my schooling, I went into a BSc of Computer Science in one of the university in Maharashtra. Um, so there, I got my first hands-on on computer. Before that, I had a brief exposure to one or two sessions. But other than that, my main interest in technology began with competition. So I saw that was the only way I can spend more time on computer, because most of the lectures were theoretical. And if you participate into competitions, you used to get presentations and some C programming kind of competition. So that's where my main interest grew. And that was the phase when a lot of these big four companies were hiring in India. And one of my brother's friend got placed into Microsoft. And my ambition was to, okay, I want to get that high earning kind of a job so I can um, have a better life. So that led me into autonomous college in University of Pune. So we had a department of um, computer science where the syllabus is actually set by professors. It's not from university. So that's where I opt for a lot of advanced courses like distributed systems, AI, machine learning, and network security. And my interest was quite, I would say it wasn't focused on any particular theme of computer science. It was just going quite wide. The key was always humanity at the heart, because even when network security, my intention was to protect things from harm. With machine learning, my main interest was always into natural language processing to understand the sentiments behind what people were doing. So that was all happening. And then towards the last semester, we had the placements coming to our college. And I was the only one who got selected out of 120 into Flipkart. So not sure whether you know Flipkart. So Flipkart is one of the leading e-commerce company in India. It was quite, I would say it was mid startup that time. It wasn't that expanded as it's today. So it was a good opportunity for me to join that to learn more. So when I joined Flipkart, that's where I got actually my first exposure to data space. So the way it used to work was like we will have a batch of freshers joining the company, and they will be allocated to a month of different boot camp. So the boot camps were like weekly sessions with different teams in business, where they will give you different demo projects. You have to showcase your skills, and then at the end of the month, there was like a feedback loop from your team mentors to you, and from you to your team mentors, saying like I'm interested in this particular team. So that's how I think I showed my interest into data, because it was always there. I was curious about information. I was curious about how things were working. So that landed me into data team. Particularly in data team, for me, it was having, when I joined, my first project in that team was centralized configuration management. So it was a tool which we built to do a kind of a document store version control. So it was seeing who made a change into what line of configuration file, and that file was fed into a software to bootstrap it. So basically to start the software. So
Mhm.
when I was doing that, I learned a lot about overall business, because it was a central tool which was connecting to more than 150 odd applications. So the work was involved like talking to different architects in a company, talking to different stakeholders in a company, understanding how their systems were connected, how the data was flowing from one system to another, and what were their scalability issues, like when systems could go
Mm.
wrong. So yeah, it was, I was quite enjoying that work. But because it was a centralized management system, the work quite wrapped up within 8 to 9 months, I would say. And that was the time when we were scaling for Big Billion Days. Not sure whether you have heard about that. So it's kind of Black Friday sales or Boxing Day sales in other countries. So it's, you
Yeah.
scale your systems to more than 20 to 25 times of what they do on average day.
Mhm.
So that was the first time I got exposure to more on like how you can scale things to the unforeseen demand of, because things, we were doing it for first time. So we didn't know how many people will buy products from our site, how much
Which year
traffic.
was it?
It was 2014.
Was it
2014,
in
that was,
cloud or was it on-prem
it was
infrastructure?
on-prem. It was on-prem. Actually,
Wow. Okay.
it was quite learning journey for us. And so we learned a lot about our ecosystem. Few systems stand that traffic. We scaled it for 20 times, and we had, I think, close to 30 times traffic. So few systems
Wow.
didn't scale. And
Mm.
that was actually a learning to rebuild our own cloud. So Flipkart actually built their own private cloud in 2015, 16. Um, and all my experience from being involved into that POC, and having interest into infra led me into part of the infrastructure team, where we were actually, it was like massive. I still haven't seen the similar scale in New Zealand in last 8 to 9 years, but it was massive. Like we were talking about more than 1200 plus servers for just your data team.
Wow.
And the data wise, it was like petabyte scale. We were
Yeah.
churning down 6 to 10 terabyte of data every day, and trillions of events happening on your website, because people can put items into wish list, they can put that into cart, they can buy it. So the any purchase
Wow.
generating
So this
logistics.
was in 2014 in Flipkart, right? Can you
Yes, yes.
imagine how much that would have scaled up in, like, especially a post-COVID or during COVID?
It would, I imagine it must be now in more than, I would say, 100 petabyte scale, because after the technology also evolved over time. That time the compressions, codecs, and those were not that advanced, or the
Mm,
separations for storage and compute wasn't that advanced. So storage wise, I would say, um, events, the number of events would have must been gone to, I think, more than 10 to 20 times now, because of the population
mm,
and more people going to mobile based
mm.
ordering. And so yeah, it was quite a big learning for me, I would say, and that what led me into my more interest into technology and open source, because having this scale where no one has built it means you have to build it from scratch. And um, though that time all these cloud vendors were like quite in their early stage of cloud setup, I would say, because
Mm,
we tried most of them, and they didn't had tools which we wanted. So we ended up building in-house using open source tools like Apache Hadoop, Kafka, Hive, Tez. Um, so my role actually evolved more because of that I went into more focus on platforms optimizations and looking into
mhm,
how you can reduce the overall cost of your ecosystem. And to do that, I ended up actually untangling these open source softwares and finding their performance issues, contributing back to them to fix it, having catch ups within the Bangalore's community to understand what challenges they were facing that time, learning from their challenges, sharing our lessons. It was quite interesting journey for me, I would say. And
yeah.
being a fresher with just 1 year experience, that was like life changing.
Wow, that's very lucky, right, to have got that
Yeah,
experience.
yeah,
Did
it was.
you actually get to work in infrastructure space in the cloud area, cloud domain recently? Because that would
Yes,
be a completely different change of scene, and you would have
it
like,
was.
I think you would love it. In fact,
Yeah.
having the flexibility to just create and destroy infrastructure just so easily in the cloud with
Yeah,
infrastructure as code and everything, it's just
yeah,
unimaginable, right? Like in 2014, you could not have even dreamt of something like that. And how difficult it would have been for you to actually just check the scaling, everything, or even doing an upgrade or testing in those systems.
yeah. So that time it was, the scale was high, but then we were building our own infrastructure tools. So nowadays we call tools like Terraform or Bicep
Mm.
templates. Back then we were having tools like Ansible and Puppet. So we were,
Oh, yeah.
or shell scripts. So we used to like write our own bash Linux
Mm.
shell scripts with the sequence of
Mm.
commands. And the sequencing itself, because all the hardware was on-prem or bare metals, like think about a big box
Mhm.
split into multiple virtual
Mhm.
machines. So it was the stability of VMs was main issue than the code, I would say, like, because
Mhm.
you can't guarantee like when out of
Yeah.
your limited bare metals, how many could go down at a particular instance. Um, so while I was in India, that was the Flipkart was the only company I worked as a full time. But after Flipkart, I got married and came to New Zealand. And when I came to New Zealand, I it was a big shift for me because coming from more than 1,000 machines to the infrastructures where the machines were less than 10 petabyte scale to where the scale was less than 500 GBs, and the everything was like, I would say, like thousandfold less compared to what I was
Mm,
doing on day to day. So it was a big shift, and that was the time when the companies were still trying to find a balance between their infra versus cloud, because AWS
mm,
was coming into speed that time. And I was working for Sky Television, and we were looking into how we can migrate our entire platform from on-prem to cloud.
mhm.
That's when I got exposure to like how seamless that experience has become with cloud. Like it's like one
Yeah.
click, or you got this readily available templates where you just have to plug your service name. It will do that spin off of machines for you. It will sort out all your network connectivity. It will sort out all your whitelisting and configuration rules. And particularly when it comes to data as well, it was a big shift because back in my Hadoop days, I used to write a lot of Java based code to transform the
Mhm.
information, or write custom Kafka consumers and producers to get information and put into a file storage system. Whereas with these cloud tools now, it has become quite quicker. I would say, like, if back then it
Mm,
was taking us months, it's taking us days
mm.
to develop something. Testing that time was mostly trial and errors until you figure out a key issue. Here now you have inbuilt testing most of the time. It was a big shift for me from both like culture scale as well as technology wise.
Mm. Yeah. So when did you move to New Zealand from India?
So I moved to New Zealand in 2017. So I got married at the beginning of 2017. It was quite um, interesting to see a change from um, the busy country to quite relaxed and balanced country, I would say. For me, it wasn't that different because I was born in a village in India. And for me, in my early childhood, the lifestyle was quite similar with limited resources and um, limited, I would say, like limited technology and that advanced ecosystem. So for me, um, nature wise, it wasn't that different to what I was used to in my childhood. But for me, the work wise, it was a big difference. Like you were shifting from a more scale and fast paced environment to quite relaxed, outcome focused environment. It was, yeah, I would say it was a big change from mindset as well as the culture.
Oh, so now your current role at the moment is you're a delivery lead, right? So how did the transition happen from being in a hands-on role into a leadership role?
Yeah, for me, I would say it was more organic transition coming from technology. So when I moved from India to New Zealand, within a first 6 to 9 months, I realized a couple of things. That was the technology or the level of depth I was used to wasn't here, and I didn't see a change coming on that soon because it just boils down to the population count. Because if the population count is small, you will never imagine that scale of events or that kind of volume of data being generated and the businesses. So, and a clear thing I noticed was there was a need for people who can easily translate your business needs into technical terms for technology people, whereas they can also translate the technical stuff back to business in a simple terms. And from my experience, I think I had built that over time from my school experience, my hostel experiences, my college experience, and my Flipkart experience, that I was quite easy to translate through complex situations and complex challenges into simple terms. Um, my initial role at Sky TV was more about the functional leadership, where I was looking into technical aspects of infra, data infra, I would say data infra, and the migrations from ecosystem. From there on, I moved into a logistics company where I was just in my role for close to 4 or 5 months, and my manager, that was head of data at that time, resigned, and the leadership came to me by default. So I didn't actually apply for any people leadership role, but because of that resignation, it just came to me. And I don't think whether that time I was actually looking to move into more leadership roles where it would be a combination of delivery, people management, and technology. But that was the first time I got a flavor of how it looks and how much I could actually add more value being into that role compared to the technical role. Because the early challenges which I faced into that role was connecting the dots from business to technology, where there was a high demand for different data and insights, whereas there was a slow pace from technology because of limited resources, your cost optimizations. You can only prioritize one or two initiatives at a time, whereas you could have hundreds of requests piling up. So I felt like I was able to find the common patterns between the different demand coming from business and merging that into more simplified um, deliverables and explaining that into more technical language to my people so they can develop it. So it moved into more natural progress, I would say. But then after that, the COVID hit, and that just before COVID, I decided to go on maternity leave. So I had to actually take a shift back into more technology hands-on role uh, because I was still, there was this dharma in my mind that can I handle both, like management role plus motherhood plus all the changes coming with COVID with no help and all. So I decided to actually take a step back on the leadership position and focus more on a role which will give me flexibility to work on my own times, but still deliver the outcomes. And after that, now I felt from last 1.5 years, I am more able to take on those responsibilities back. So my new role, which is I think close to 6 months I am in now, is back on the similar track of delivery and people management plus handling the analytics and engineering capabilities.
Hmm. So, what traits or skills do you think is required for someone to move from a more hands on role to a leadership role? What skills or traits do you think is important?
Yeah, I would say more than any technical skills, the key skills which are required is your communication. So you need to be more talking into business terms compared to your technical terms. And trust me, for me, it was a biggest shift because I used to talk always in numbers or highly technical terms like optimizations or scaling, caching, all those terms, to shifting that into value mapping or how it adds value back into your business chain, governance, security. So it was a change in communication. It was also a change in mindset. So when we are in technology roles, our always focus is like how we can scale it to the innovate scale in a more innovative way, even though there could be a need or not. to business. Whereas when you are in delivery role, you have to balance that. Like you have to balance between your innovation and value. So it's a shift on saying when you can um, let it go on your innovation, and when you have to pause your innovation and measure that it has derived the value. So it's bringing your uh, mind back on track to see, is this innovation going to add value to current needs of business, or am I just solving it for something which is not realistic in our scale or in our business domain, because that could be a situation for other company or other domain in a business.
Mm.
So that was a shift. And the other thing which I noticed from being a hands-on to a delivery role is letting go. Because a lot of times when you are coaching your junior members in a team, you get this urge of doing everything by yourself because you have done that a lot of times in the past. But when you move into more delivery role, your focus is not on doing stuff by yourself, but multiplying the skills which you have got into your juniors so that you can expand the ecosystem. So it could be like, it could take me one day to do something, but to my team member, it could be 8 days initially. But then after that, I know it will optimize over time because I have trained them with those skill sets. So yeah, it's more control on your mindset and communication, I would say.
And so now, as a woman of color having migrated from India to New Zealand, what were your initial challenges that you encountered entering into tech sector, and how did you navigate?
Yeah, yeah, for me, actually, I didn't find it hard to get a job in New Zealand market because of my skill sets which I had developed back in India. New Zealand was in demand for that skill sets when I came to New Zealand. And as soon as I changed my LinkedIn profile to Bangalore to Auckland, within a day, I got 3 interview calls, I would say.
Oh,
And
wow.
they
Which
sponsored
year
me
was
work
it?
visa. It was in 2017 May. So
Okay.
I came in mid-April and I changed. I was still roaming around nearby cities like Rotorua and all that. And then after uh, a month, I was already bored and I'm like, I need to get back into my technology work. So I changed my
Mm,
profile and I got actually 3 calls within a day. And one of them, that time the company's name was Fulcrum Hub. They actually sponsored me work visa because they were after a skill set of Hadoop and Hive people that time. So
mhm,
that's how actually I got into my technology role back in New Zealand. But for me, the barriers being a woman from other country were more on my in my head. It was you get this feeling that you don't belong to a table here or you don't belong to the conversations. And looking back now, I realized that it
mhm.
was something in India we have a concept called as power distancing. I don't know whether you have come across it. So it's quite um, unspoken clear hierarchies in the roles where you don't usually speak until you have been asked to, or you don't give opinions until you have given permissions to do that. So it's more like you treat all the positions by authority and you wait for your turn, even though you have ideas in your head, or even you know that you can be better at doing this, but you will wait for your turn. So being a migrant woman, for me, I did face a lot of challenges struggling to that particular barrier, which was I was trying to overcome within my head, that how can I make myself feeling that I belong to this place now. And it was a shift because the culture here was more open. There was no hierarchy. It was more cross functional.
Mm.
Like I started noticing it after a couple of years. It took me few years to actually realize that. So I started understanding it's more about how much you are contributing back than what position you are holding. Um, so that was one thing I would say because of that, I gave up on a lot of opportunities as well during that time because I always felt like I'm not ready for it yet. Or even if I will I be able to lead the diverse set of people or diverse cultural background people, and how will they, whether they will accept me in that role, or how will it work out? So I think during COVID time, I spent a lot of time on self reflections to get that confidence back, and started observing people, because that was a time when people were coming to more human stuff because they had a lot of time.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was slowing down and getting back on like how things were working around you, and overcoming that fear of power distancing, and um, getting back on that table.
Wow. So that's very insightful. You mentioned that the bias or hierarchies that you actually feel or experience is more in your mind than what's actually outside, right? So, what steps did you take to break your own barriers to come out and make yourself at home wherever you are? What helped you?
So for me, was observing throughout the days, like what were the differences, like why I was not getting the opportunities and why others were getting it. And there was a clear pattern that they were just speaking up and I wasn't. And that was one difference. The second was like I did also notice that when you come from a different background, often you let other people make decisions on behalf of you. Like sometimes the other people will just think like, oh, this person is not good for this position because they haven't got certain experience or certain number of years of experience. So I started to actually notice those patterns and write it down so that I can look back and see whether it's actually something where I'm not capable enough, or is it just me not speaking up, or fe- uh, not showing up. I would say I was still present there, but I wasn't present there um, in fully, so I wasn't contributing back. And in New Zealand culture, it's kind of a disengagement if you don't speak up. So um, I practice it more deliberately to get involved into small talks, to approach the people where I was comfortable enough to share my ideas, or to provide the answers with more facts rather than gut based feelings, so that way I don't have to um, just so the facts were there to just show that I don't have the number of years of experience, but I can show you how I can do it by doing it. So yeah, I would say like I practice a lot to get there, and battling that thinking in the head that don't hold your thoughts, just talk.
Yeah, this is very true, right? Coming from different cultural backgrounds, how our personal upbringing, our cultural environment, the social setup we grew up in has such a huge impact in molding us and shaping us to be the person who we are now. And but then when you move to a different country and if you move to a different environment, you have no option but to once again readapt, relearn, or unlearn things from the past and then adapt yourself to the new environment. Otherwise, as you said, right, if you just continue to use the same behavior that helped you survive in India, in New Zealand, you'll be seen as someone who's disengaged.
Yeah,
Whereas in India, that served you well, but whereas in New Zealand, it would just not serve you at all, right?
yeah,
So that's a very nice observation. And that's actually very cool that you actually took time to observe, write it down, reflect on things. It just really shows how motivated and inspired you were to actually grow in your career.
yeah. had this, I think like in India, we have this culture of respect. So you treat people by their age and position. And I think that's the biggest barrier I noticed with me, as well as when I talk to a lot of people who migrate from uh, India or neighbor countries. They have the similar culture, and they struggle a lot to unlearn that thing that um, you can just call elders by name. That's a big shift for us. Or you can openly pinpoint the mistakes which you can't back in your country. So yeah, it's that mindset shift which takes a while, because it's close to your 25 to 30 years you have spent in that country. So it takes time, I would say.
Yeah. So if you now see a recent migrant woman
Yeah.
who's just trying to get into technology in New Zealand, what advice would you give them?
Definitely one around that mindset which I spoke earlier, but I would also give them advice to be more adaptable to the change, because to me, it's if you can't change yourself, you can't grow much. Because if you stick to your uh, skills which you got in India, I don't think they will take you to a certain extent in your career, but you need to adapt, because technology is evolving, your culture is changing, your environment is changing. So you need to just keep learning that stuff and just adjust to it. The another advice which I will give is more about the resilience, that don't let any of your initial struggles or failures set you back. Just bounce back from that, because it happens to a lot of people when they come to different country, that they get a feeling that, oh, I'm not getting a job, or will I be good at this job, or I'm taking a step back from my high positions in India to a position here, because it's a hierarchy. In India, it's more structured roles. You'll have 10 to 12 roles in an org, whereas in New Zealand, it's just 2 or 3 roles in entire org. So I would say don't let the hierarchy stop you from applying to jobs, because here it's a flatter structure. So just go for it. Even if the role is just a junior level, just go for it, because of the cross functional nature of companies here, the role is still equivalent enough of the senior roles back in the country, because it gives you that exposure of variety of teams, variety of tooling, and owning the component even if you are a junior in that position.
Now, working in the data space, right? Now, that's a really evolving technology. Like you spoke about machine learning and being interested in natural language processing years ago. And now you see it just embedded in so many tools and applications that we use every day. What is it that really excites you in this data space and that you are working on?
Yeah, for me, in data space, currently the excitements are the new generative AI stuff, which is coming to market. There is still a confusion whether it will be for human or against human, but it's still excitement on learning how we can use it and make it more um, compatible with our ecosystem. So for me, it's not how I will use that tool. For me, it's like how I will make the responsible use of those tools, so that we can still have sustainable tooling around us. So uh, there is a fear that will these tools will make decisions on behalf of all human and make things against human or not. But also, it's about, will this tool will explode the cost for companies. So for me, the excitement is around like how I can govern the use of the new technology, as well as how I can ensure that it adds value back into business under the certain cost constraints, and how it will balance that human aspects of a developer or a person today, like the empathy, the emotional intelligence, the willingness to solve any problem with and going beyond the restricted context. with these tools, because the tools are just what information you give them, and you need to then train your people to give that information correctly, so that the tools will give you the correct response back. So yeah, if I have to summarize that, I'm doing the NLP of AI tools at the moment. So I'm learning how the AI tools are responding back to human needs, and a bit of predictions around what value they will add. But yeah, other than
Now,
that,
from
yeah.
sorry, you go ahead.
No, but other than that, my core interest and the excitement nowadays is also in the data product space, where all these boom of AI will need more governed and accurate data to answer. So my focus is more on like how I can make that available, so that um, the data which is there is more qualitative, and it's not giving a um, fuzzy results based on your different queries. So it should be consistent when someone is querying it, and it should satisfy more needs, and it shouldn't be like one is to one, because one is to one is not going to scale much in future. So yeah.
Awesome. So, coming from a village in India to now seeing yourself, looking back at yourself, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Don't restrict your um, initial circumstances to see your future, because I did make some early decisions in my childhood which have led to who I am today. It made me more resilient, and I would say it made me more human, so I can relate to others' struggle easily now. And I can be that voice for people who are scared of making that decision, or I can easily guide them through, I would say, because I have solved that at quite a young age.
Wow, this is amazing story. Thank you for sharing your story. This is just too good. Like such resilience, such willpower required at the age of 9 or 10 to be able to just say like, okay, this is my priority. This is what I want. Let me see what I can do better.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chetna. This was such a really nice, heartwarming conversation. It was so good to listen to your story, like just listening to your story and seeing how resilient, how powerful you are, um, and how consistent you've been with your effort, your discipline, and stuff. There are so many things that we could learn just listening to your life story in those few minutes. Thank you so much for your time. Any message to our listeners before we finish off?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Meena, for inviting me and sharing my journey. The last message which I would like to give to the listeners is similar note that don't let your beginning decide your future. Just grow, just grow through each and every situation, and don't shrink yourself to fit into someone else's expectation. Let your mind um, make the decision for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chetna.
Thanks, Meena.